Good afternoon. We're here to do the final stage of our Victorian sewing boxes, which is putting them all together and assembling them. So, just point this down at the actual boxes. Now, I'm maybe one step ahead of you here in that I've actually done the gluing with the ribbons. All you'll need to do with the ribbons is just make sure that you cut off something that's a bit wider than each of your inside cushions, and then just glue along the back and make sure that you stick them halfway along so that you end up with these nice even ribbons all the way around. And then all we're going to do is we're going to glue our smaller sections on here, our larger ones on here, and then our inside colour goes inside the lid. Here it is. Our outside colour goes on top of the lid, and our number 2, the biggest one, that goes on the base of the box. So you basically know you've got everything right when you can't see any more of the cardboard. So probably just demonstrate with the lid. It's not really that complicated. You want to make sure when you're doing the gluing that you get a reasonable amount in the middle, but that you get the edges just right. So you don't want to get too close, but you also want to make sure that you've got enough glue that it's going to hold, but it's not going to come around the edges, because if it comes around the edges then you'll see the glue, and we don't want to see any of the glue on this, because obviously this is the very last step. And if we see any of the glue, then you're going to see it in your final product. I really need to get a faster bottle of glue because this is somewhat painful at this point. So if you do your gluing close to the edge, but not on the edge, by the time that glue spreads out, it should hold it in place without actually being visible. And this one's probably cheating a little bit because you're not going to see anything on the inside of the box. But we still want to make sure that those edges are holding really nicely. And then, oh, goodness me. Just some in the middle, just to make sure it sticks. The middle's much less important. And then with this one especially, being very careful we don't get any down the side. And we just pop that in. So apply nice pressure, especially around those edges, to make sure that we spread that glue out. and then spread it around the inside. So the fabric glue is actually pretty good. Done. So everything else should be pretty straightforward, other than lost my little bit of fabric. Where's it gone? Come here. Here, fabric, fabric, fabric. Ah. They'll run away from you. Okay, so this one's probably the only one that's really any more complicated. So it's our little pin cushion for the center. So what we need to do is we need to either use stuffing or a little bit of wadding. If you don't have any stuffing, I've just got wadding. And we need to fill up a little bit of fabric so that we can have a little pin cushion in the center of the box. So I'm just going to roll this up like so, and then I'm going to fold the fabric around and just push it in through there. And believe you me, you might have to have a couple of goes at this to get something that you're happy with. Because you kind of want to have the box nicely filled so that it doesn't have any gaps around the edges. It is easier to do this with stuffing than it is to do it with wadding, because the stuffing will mold to the shape of whatever you're trying to work with a little bit easier. But I don't currently have any stuffing, so I'm just working with the wadding, which does work fine. It's just a little bit easier to get it even with the stuffing. That way. And there we go. We've got our little pin cushion. So once you've got a pin cushion like that, you need to glue around the edges. And again, with my awful bottle of glue, this is not going to be much fun. So what you want to do is very carefully pull down the edges from the bottom. Don't do it from the top, because you'll end up being able to see that. So from the bottom, again, doesn't matter what things look like at the bottom, because we're never going to see that, so you can be as messy and as horrible as you like. Make sure you do all four sides. Get the fabric stuck to the side of the box and the wadding stuck to the fabric. You'll probably end up with your wadding stuck to your bottle of glue and quite a bit of glue stuck to you. with a little bit of luck, that should all be nicely stuck. So that's how we put all of our pieces together. Then the box itself, we need to stick together. So our last couple of bits of cardboard that won't be stuck are this and this. So when we glue this down, we don't stick it straight down, we stick it down at an angle. Make sure you apply lots of pressure to this, because this one is one of the ones that's going to have a lot of force applied to it, so make sure you get it lined up nicely in the middle. Apply the glue and stick it down, but make sure these are all done first, because you'll find it a lot easier to stick all of these down and apply pressure, and then you'll be able to do that one in the center. And then the very last thing you want to do, the very last thing, is do the same for, again, on a 45-degree angle, apply your pincushion to the center of your small inside box. And again, do this the very, very last thing, because if you don't do this bit last, then it's very hard to apply pressure to the smaller boxes. And that's it. That's the end of your sewing box. You should now have a nice sewing box in order to put all of your pins and needles and scissors and threads and anything else that you want to sew with. And you're done. I hope you've enjoyed it.